Welcome to another Commonwealth Conversation. This is We Virginians. I am Ryan Gilchrist. Today we're talking about public finances. And joining us, we have Laurie Holloway. She's a town council person from Occoquan, Virginia. Welcome, Laurie.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
We also have Ross Mugler. He's the Commissioner of Revenue for the City of Hampton for the past 28 years. Hello, Ross.
Hi, how are y'all? It's good to be with you.
As always, my co-host is Marisa Porto. She's an executive in residence at Hampton University and a longtime newspaper editor and publisher. Hello, Marisa.
Hi, nice to see you all today.
So you and I have had some conversations about finances. I think we've all discussed personal finances, but today we're kind of wanting to look at public finances. Certainly complicated in this time of coronavirus crisis. Marisa, where would you like to start today?
Well, we have two experts, so I'll start with and say, sales revenues plummeted, tax revenues are being delayed. How has the coronavirus immediately affected your city's finances, and what have you done to address it?
That's a big question for sure. And after hearing that Ross has such experience with finance for so long, I can't wait to hear. I'm going to learn from Ross, I think, here later. We're a very small town, Occoquan is, but we have 11 restaurants in town and quite a few shops. It's a historic district, and we've worked very hard to make it a retail area where people come from DC. We're very close to DC, and it's really a destination. And this has been devastating for our town, specifically for our small businesses. We have no chains of any sort in town. They're all locally owned. And they are seeing traffic down, of course. They're seeing some may not open. We have one of our 11 restaurants that has closed through the whole coronavirus situation, has not been open, not one day. Most of the others have tried are doing curbside pickup and deliveries and things like that. And we've encouraged that as a town. We have worked with them. Our police chief regularly wanders through the town and checks in with each of the owners to see how things are going. We've set up specific parking areas. Parking, as in any tiny historic town, parking is a nightmare sometimes. And so we've set up specific areas where people could get in easily for quick pickups and things. But, we're on the river in a beautiful part of Northern Virginia, and spring is the time, and people are making seeing huge crowds and doing a lot of business. And that's not here. It's gone right now. So it's a struggle for everybody. We have delayed, some of their tax reportings. We're on the edge of our fiscal year, so we can't delay very much, but everything that we've pushed back, the council has voted to do that. One thing we did have done that I do like, excuse me, is we've set up an online marketplace, the Occoquan Marketplace. And it's kind of an online Etsy store, if you will, where all of our business owners can go up there, and every day they can post once or twice a day things that they have for sale. And what's been heartening about that is that they're choosing very creative things. Several of the business owners have said to me, we know right now people are struggling to buy groceries and pay their rent and their mortgage, and people aren't buying the things we sell, which are luxuries. And so they're very carefully choosing things putting it on that marketplace, and they will offer 4 or 5 of them for sale. They'll say, I have 4 of these things. And the town and the community around us immediately is buying those things from them. And they're doing it all online, and you just say sold, and all of a sudden you own this thing, and then they arrange pickup, and it's kept them in business. It's kept them alive till now. And our town staff worked with our town merchants to set that up, and I had nothing to do with it, but I'm very proud of it because it's been very effective. Just a couple of things that we've done so far.
That was a great idea. Great ideas. Ross, can you tell us a little bit about what's happening in your community and to deal with the issue financially?
Well, I think you may be somewhat surprised in my answers today. It's been quite intriguing to look at sales tax reports. But first, I want to, the first thing that's really been a huge gap for us is the meal tax and the lodging tax. We receive approximately about $2 million a month in the meal tax, and we have somewhere around about 3.7 million a year coming in from lodging tax. So we're virtually got zero coming in right now on lodging tax. The hotels are pretty empty. Matter of fact, some of the hotels are actually closed. The restaurants are taking it the hardest. However, there's been really somewhat of a silver lining that out there that we're experiencing in Hampton, and we have a lot of big box stores, like we have a big Walmart, a big Kroger, we have a BJ's, of course, Home Depot and Lowe's are just packed, and there's one other thing that's going on out there in taxable sales that I would like to address shortly. But so we have found that our sales have actually increased, because think about these stores that are doing $100 million a year, and some of the stores have actually had 100% increase in sales, 100%, and that makes up for a lot of these non-essential businesses that were not able to open up. So I don't know, y'all have, I went to Chesapeake the other day, 40 minutes away to pick up a part for my pool. And I noticed people were circling the Lowe's parking lot looking for a parking space. So people are doing a lot of home repairs, and they have a lot more time at home. They're not going out to ball games and sporting events and activities. They're not going to church. So people are really making good use of their time doing a lot of home repairs, and it's reflected in the the Home Depot and the Lowe's of the world. They're just doing an incredible business. And yesterday I had the opportunity to talk to a person that picks up bulk trash in our city, and he said, "Ross, I got to tell you that it's like a hurricane hit the city of Hampton, because refuge is so far up because everybody's doing so much work around their home." And speaking of doing work around my house, I noticed, since I've been doing a lot of work on the front side, I've seen a lot of trucks, Amazon trucks, rented trucks from Amazon, so many home deliveries. And on course of a given Saturday, there's usually at least 6 to 8 trucks coming down my lane, and there's only 13 homes down there. It's a totally amazing. So what we have seen, the result of there was a Supreme Court case in 2 years ago. It was South Dakota versus Wayfair, and basically the Supreme Court ruled that states may charge tax on purchases made even if you don't have nexus. Before, you had to have some type of connection or physical location within the Commonwealth in order for any locality in Virginia to receive sales tax. But now we don't have to have that. And that has opened up a floodgate. One of our fastest growing taxpayers in the city right now is Amazon. So Amazon will probably end up within the next 5 years, probably being one of the largest taxpayers in most cities. That's my own personal predictions based on the trajectory of their sales. Is quite remarkable. I feel like we ought to be taxing their vehicles for all the wear and tear on our roads, but it's just totally unreal. And of course, speaking of the other stores that are non-essential that closed down, they're in a world of hurt. You see where the Peoples and JCPenney's and a lot of the other ones, Pier 1, a lot of them are in some form of bankruptcy. And if you're a retailer, and it's like, let's say you're a Dillard's or JCPenney's, you missed out on people buying Easter clothes, prom dresses, and you have all this inventory sitting in the store and you can't sell it. And nobody is dressing up to go to work. The dry cleaner says people are not even bringing dry cleaning in. So, the ramifications, I don't think we know all of them yet, but that's been very, very intriguing to me. The other thing that you're not going to believe, but you consider where we are in Hampton Roads. 45% of our economy is driven by Defense Department and defense spending, and we have had the different stimulus monies come into the city. Would you believe that auto sales are up on the peninsula? Believe it or not, service departments are up. But guess what's not up, in a big auto store is actually the body shops, because not many people are driving, not many people are in accidents. So the body shops are not doing well in a lot of these big dealerships, but the sales of new cars and trucks are going very well, and so is the service departments are doing well. I can talk about taxable sales and this subject until the cows come home. So I will stop there, and I have some other concerns as it pertains to sales tax and excise taxes, like the meal tax and lodging, just because COVID is going to impact us so greatly in the future, especially because you think about all the things that we have going on. And, like we have Hampton University, they have a ministers conference every year. Well, that's not going to take place. We have football, and football brings people in our community that, puts heads on beds in our hotels. They buy meals. We have big festivals that take place. Those things are not going to happen. So, I see the recovery to be extremely slow. And but I'm going to stop there, and I know you have other questions.
Well, we'll start this one with Laurie and say, the Brookings Institute has done some research and has said that a lot of the communities and city governments are going to face some long-term challenges that really they're going to have to deal with, including lowering spending and hiring taxes and consolidations or reductions. And I guess I wonder for Occoquan, what you're seeing for your community in the budgeting era.
This has been an interesting spring for working on the budget. We've been seeking Ouija boards and crystal balls because, as Ross said, it will significantly impact us, but we aren't exactly sure of how much or how long. And that's a very difficult thing, as all of you have worked on budgets a lot, and you need to have some type of framework that you can trust. We have just put out, we'll pass our budget next month. And we've just put out our tax rate. We've left it the same as last year. Assessments in our area are going up a little bit, but it's not a huge shift. And we have identified some contingency areas where we can cut if we need to. One of the most difficult things for Occoquan is we have a huge craft show, arts and crafts show in the spring and the fall every year for 50 years, 50. And that is a significant portion of our general fund. Well, of course, we did not have the spring show this year. That we are still looking on how to make up the money from that. The meals tax is a huge part of us as well. So we are looking for maintenance issues that we can defer. We're looking at capital projects that we can hold back on that we would have liked to have done. We didn't have anything huge on our agenda for next year in that area anyway, so we caught a break on that. We had just last year 2 years ago, opened our park, a big park on the river. That was our big project for a while. And while a larger community has more significance of those type of things, then it's also harder in a smaller town to make up for it. So one of the things we've done, spring is also a big maintenance time for us, right? Because that typically hits our large tourism season. People come in for the day and they picnic or they boat in, and we haven't seen that. So we've been taking our maintenance time to spiff up the town a little. You have a town that was formed in 1738, so it needs a little maintenance now and then. And so our police department has been doing maintenance work on their off shifts. Normally we have a lot of cut through traffic. We're at the nexus of a very terrible intersection in one of the worst in Virginia nearby, and we have a lot of cut through traffic for that reason. And normally they're very busy this time of year monitoring the cut through traffic, and we don't have that right now. So those guys have volunteered. They're like, well, why don't we just come in and we'll work on this maintenance project with the maintenance supervisor. And so I think we're small enough that we can find creative solutions like that aren't as complex as they would be in a large institution, larger city.
And Ross, do you have any thoughts about the effect of this year's budget?
Yeah, I have some thoughts, but also, I'm a very optimistic person in general. But the one thing we have in Virginia, is we require our localities, our cities, our counties, and our towns to have a balanced budget. And most good practitioners of that run these places, the city managers, town managers, and they're really good stewards, and they understand that they have to keep an adequate fund balance. And the fund balance is essentially becomes your little kitty of savings that you have. And most localities try to keep somewhere around a 5% fund balance. The city of Hampton, our fund balance, I think is somewhere around $170 million. This year's budget the council just approved was a $516 million budget. Now, under that fund balance, there are different categories, whether they're some of them are undesignated, some of them are assigned, some of them are committed to different projects, but still there's plenty of money left in the fund balance that can fill in some holes in a year like this. Similar to, you could describe it as a locality's rainy day fund, really. So that could fill in a lot of gaps. But what our manager has decided to do is actually to leave the budget and not do any change to the budget, but to hold a significant amount of spending off to see how the year goes, which is a very practical approach. But so much of our, we have, so out of our budget in Hampton, 40% of it is connected to some type of property tax, whether it's machinery and tool, real estate, or personal property. We're not seeing any drastic changes there. The government, the federal government providing this, the unemployment with the extra stimulus of that $600 a week has made a lot of people whole. Matter of fact, in some cases, it's double people's income. So we see a lot of economic activity. So we don't think we're going to make any, there may be some delay on this taxes because we've given everybody, instead of paying June 5th, they have till August 1st to pay. So we're not seeing in that bulk of that close to 200 million part of that, the $500 million budget taking a hit. Where we have to be really careful is to look at the items that, the consumer spending, like, admissions tax, the business license tax is based on income, so that could have an impact the following year. Lodging tax, but like I said, sales and use tax, I think we're going to be fine on it. So, there's a lot of these miscellaneous taxes that we're not going to see meet the mark. And eventually I think we're going to see the sales tax flatten out because, right now, people have a lot of time, they're doing these things. So what is it going to look like in July and August, I don't know. That remains to be seen. But I don't think you just turn that switch on and everything is back to normal. Restaurants opened up Friday night in our city for outdoor dining, and we went to one of the establishments. It was very well done, but so we decided to ride around and look at the other ones that were open, and everything was shut down at 9 p.m., which tells me that they weren't that busy, and two, people still are not feeling comfortable dining out at restaurants at this point. So I think the recovery is going to be slow. And can I mention one thing that that I'm hearing from the business community that I think is kind of important. Restaurant owners, small business. One of our biggest mid-sized businesses, it's almost a big business. They're really having trouble getting people to come back to work, and that's because of the unemployment. So they get the $300 and close to $400 unemployment from the state. They get the $600, and I have a friend that has a good-sized business that pays his warehouse workers between $24,000 and $30,000. Well, the equivalent of what they're getting with the unemployment is somewhere around $50,000 a year. So most of them are making more money not working, and restaurant owners are trying to call their workers back. They're not coming back. Retailers can't get them to come back. Even some of the dental hygienists are not wanting to come back to work. So until that stimulus runs out this summer, I think they're going to struggle with getting some of these folks back to work. And a lot of the college students are complaining about jobs, but there's actually going to be a lot of jobs out there because a lot of these other folks are just not going to return to work at this juncture. Of course, I don't know about the jeopardy of them losing their benefits, but it's a real problem that we're experiencing in the city of Hampton.
Well,
Laurie,
I'd like.
I wonder because obviously the difference between Occoquan and Hampton, I think, is fairly obvious to anyone listening to this. What's your great fear with this at this point? Clearly you don't have the same tax base. Your budget is largely hinged on, tourism and travel and people stopping by. Yes, things are reopening now, but if we see a resurgence of this virus, or if people continue to be concerned about travel, at what point does that become a massive problem for Occoquan?
In the next month or so, I would say, if we don't start seeing, we are so significantly spring loaded, literally, with the river and the businesses in town. I mean, on a normal weekend in the spring and early summer, particularly early summer, we are packed. Our streets are thronged with shoppers and diners and entertainers and people paddle boarding on the river. And if we don't see that push coming back soon, then our businesses will suffer significantly. My biggest fear is that some of our businesses just can't pull out of this, right? They're small businesses, they're privately owned. And what we've worked very hard for in Occoquan is not to have the type of small downtown that's got empty storefronts, where you walk by and it looks like a Chiclets box where you go 2 or 3 doors and there's nothing there. And we have almost zero problems like that, or have had in the past. Every time one of our businesses owners retires, then something is coming in there very quickly. And that keeps our town vibrant. It keeps people wanting to come here. And it's we're in the middle of surrounded by Woodbridge and Dale City and other high growth areas. And it's kind of an enclave, if you will, a little respite. We have parks that are heavily used right here on the river. So my biggest fear is if people just don't come to enjoy that spring and summer ambiance, then our businesses just aren't going to make it. We have a popular clothing store in town. It's independently owned and it's small, but you know, and I saw her on the street the other day and I said, how are things going? And, you know, she just kind of shakes her head. She was also the first person to show up Saturday morning at our food drive that we had at our park, right? And she showed up with a bag of food. So that Occoquan is very, it's a hometown. It's kind of where Opie would live, I think, if he lived in Northern Virginia. And so everybody knows each other. And they're very much trying to help each other out. And it's been that way for 2 months now. I don't know how long that can go is the problem. I don't know how long people, like to Ross's point, when people start going back to work and they're more worried about their world coming back together. And when the stimulus does end, you know, I know that's how our restaurant workers have been surviving. When it's time to come back, will they come back? That's a very good question, I think, Ross, of how our workers will make it. I don't know. It'll be difficult. If we see a fall resurgence of the virus, then I think all bets are off again. To Ross's point, a lot of our tax income had already been accrued and will be paid. And next year will be where we'll see the impact on it. We are very small, and it makes us, I think, more vulnerable to not having our downtown be as vibrant. But we're very, very much based on outdoors. And just a bad weather season. A couple of years ago, we had that spring in summer where it rained, if you remember, almost every day of the summer. Right. And we saw a huge hit from that. Add that on top of this, and it's very concerning for small towns.
Ross, on sort of the other end of the impact, you've been Commissioner of Revenue in Hampton for a long time, and I know a big part of your job is, yes, assessing what's happening now, but projecting what's coming in the future. And, you know, I wonder if you have some insight on just how long the tail is on this particular crisis. Okay, you see a surge now, but at what point do you feel like we really truly see recovery from this, and what are you projecting at this point?
I don't think anybody really knows the answer to that question. You know, I think we were hopeful, but you know, I guess we're going to know later this summer. You know, my biggest fear is you know, for a locality that has a a university. Do the students come back? And if they go online, that's going to have many ramifications on our city, because you know, they spend a lot of money in our stores and our restaurants, and these kids love to eat out, and they're everywhere, and like any college student. So I really worry about that. But you know, they're you know, I guess my biggest concern is because we have a big sports, we have this Boo Williams Sports Center that does a lot of tournaments and things like this. We have a convention center, and when I see things starting to pop up on their schedule again, we will know as a city things are getting better. And until we see that, you know, one trade association and one group after the other, you know, they're canceling events, and if they continue to cancel through the summer, those ramifications are going to be felt statewide, because that's a lot of spending that's going on in, you know, places like, you know, Norfolk, Virginia Beach, Hampton, anybody that has a big convention center. It's a huge impact. So once you know, so if you know, I hope and pray that there is a, you know, this virus will just magically disappear, but I don't think that's going to happen. But until there's some type of vaccine, you know, are we going to see normalcy? And you know, are we going to be able to see a college football stadium? Like, I'm on the board of Old Dominion University. Are we going to see 22,000 fans buy tickets and go to a football game this fall? Those are the things that we don't know. Schools really want that to happen, because most football programs and basketball programs in the Commonwealth will not survive without ticket sales. I mean, student fees and ticket sales pay the lion's share of these programs, and without ticket sales, they cannot survive. So there may be some real cuts there. So once I see, people scheduling things at our convention center, at our sports venue that we have that does a lot of tournaments, that will be sign things are getting better. And we, all of us go to national conventions and conferences, and all of mine have been canceled through the end of the summer. And that's affecting, one was in Charlottesville, one was in Harrisonburg. I had one earlier that was canceled in DC. So we're seeing that across the nation. And so once I see some normalcy when these things are starting to be scheduled again and planned again, I think things will get better.
Laurie, can you tell us a little bit about what you think any public policy issues that will come out of this will be for cities or governments across the Commonwealth? Anything that you feel like that the state needs to address or tackle in the context of city governments?
What I would like to see come out of it as a professional communicator is better communication on why we do the things we do. Navigate in our town, of course, as you can imagine, we have, with any town, we have the two camps which say this is not a problem and you're making it a problem, and others who are saying you're not going far enough. We want you to, erect barriers around the town, not let anybody in. So it's communicating in that way. We've had to seriously up our game in our town to do that, to say why we're doing this, and following the governor's guidelines. He was opening Friday, as Ross said. Hampton opened Friday for dining. We're in Northern Virginia, so we were accepted from that and pushed back 2 weeks for the counties near us. And now our county supervisors last night just voted to ask the governor to allow us to move that back up. So we're going back and forth and back and forth. And I think just keeping clarity about that type of thing. It's not exactly public policy, but it's public need. As far as public policy specifically goes with us, we'll be looking very seriously at those the rainy day funds that we're all trying to hang on to, and just how much is needed. We've had a good one as well. The fund balance, it's been healthy, and in a small community, something like this happens, and you think you were in great shape, and now you're like, wow, were we in such good shape, and how much should that be? So I think we'll all look at our budgets with a little bit of a different eye, going through this, not only for this budget season, but for coming ones.
Well, then I would ask Ross if there's anything that you think needs to be addressed from a public policy standpoint.
Well, I think Virginia is one of the best places to possibly be in a situation like this, but just because the way, our structure of government is set up, it's from the state to the localities that, you have to run a balanced budget. So you have to make adjustments. So it's exactly right. You're going to have to hold off on unnecessary spending until you see that you have the revenue in place to make these things happen. So I think most localities will be very good stewards. And of course, everybody is waiting for, is there going to be a third stimulus, and is that going to be one that's going to help local and state governments? That seems to be the big question mark. That could be the biggest expenditure they make. And but in Virginia, our we are in better position than most. And one of the reasons I think we're in such good shape is because we have a multitude of different taxes. I mean, we tax everything just a little bit. And so, there are dozens of taxes that make up a town budget or a city budget or a county budget. So, it all comes together and makes up for our city, it makes, a $500 million budget come alive. And so a lot of little pieces. And of course, a big piece of it continues to be state dollars. And, state dollars is, just for our school system, I think 44% of the city's budget goes to schools. And then, but our locality is required to put in, let's say, 45 million, but we put in close to 80 million into schools. But a big chunk of what our revenues are as a locality is out of our $500 million budget, close, I think 200 million come in through different funds from the Commonwealth. So hopefully they'll maintain those funds, because it's very important to provide all the different services, and we can't do that without the state's support. So if they can be consistent with that, I think we're going to be in good shape. But I think we are the best of the best in the nation as far as the way our government is structured, and we're very fortunate to be in Virginia. Our founding fathers really knew what they were doing when they required all the subsidiaries to have balanced budgets. And I sit on some state boards, and they require all state agencies to conduct themselves the same way, so we don't end up in a big hole situation. And they're not able to borrow money for operating expenses, which is one of the reasons we're so fortunate here in the Commonwealth.
Well, this has been a fascinating conversation. Appreciate your insights for both of you. I know you're very different communities, and that's why I wanted to have you on to chat about that. I thank you for showing up today and for sharing your thoughts.
Thanks
you
for
for
having
having
us. Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you for those who are watching. We appreciate your time. Thank you again to Laurie Holloway and Ross Mugler. We appreciate you being here. Marisa, good to see you as always. For those of you watching, if you made it this far in the video, if you give us a like and subscribe to the channel, that would help us out tremendously. More conversations are coming soon. For now, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.